And so just begin to welcome in all your life force energy back into your body, back into your central channel. You can imagine your head, your heart, and your belly and your womb space all stacked, all aligned. And as you do this, just imagine any bits and pieces of energy that's been spread across your world, whether it's through persons, clients, emails. Just bring it all back into the central channel like a magnet, bringing its shards of pieces back into its sense of home and belonging. Beautiful. And let's see here. I wanted to first begin with a gratitude statement of thank you for being here. Thank you to those who are going to watch the replay. I'm very excited to share what's been on my heart for many moons, and also what's coming through a lot in my client activations, especially when I'm working one-on-one with clients, deeply going into their love frequencies and their love karmas in their birth charts. And there's a few things that I've noticed, and one of them is this yearning for Dharmic relationships, not only, of course, in myself, but also in many of my clients' lives. We are yearning for this in the collective as sacred women, as priestesses, as women walking their talk in integrity with all parts of who they are, and wanting to open up, open to not only the love of God, the love of Source, but the love of a man, a love of a beloved. And so how I like to define Dharmic relationships and how you may know that you're on this path is knowing that you're living a life of unusual rapid change of things shifting in career, things shifting in your health, things shifting in your travel, where you live, your self-perceptions, how you're perceiving the world, shifts in your levels of consciousness, your levels of your own way that you make meaning out of circumstances or choose not to make meaning out of circumstances, things like this. When we're on this path of rapid change, we're often also on the path of living in right relationships with all beings, including our love mates, our beloved, and our partners. And whether you are dating, whether you've had Dharmic or karmic partners, all is welcome to contemplate and to invoke the highest timeline of what you are seeking in terms of love in this very moment. And so Dharmic relating often requires us to be so grounded in our spiritual practice, so grounded in our internal truth, in our own blissful path, so that we can be aligned to the fractal that is ours to be aligned with, whether it's through one person or perhaps multiple people. What I've witnessed is that it's often multiple people. Sometimes it's a person that we date for a few days or a few weeks or a few months or a few years. And sometimes it's a couple people we date for a couple years. They're all bringing us a sense of understanding, inner knowledge, and self-cultivation. And so this is a path of living as an intuitive woman, in taking in consideration principles of proper and healthy polarity, but ultimately principles of self-enlightenment, of your intuition leading you through every step of the relationship. which is the hardest part, and what I feel like we need support most right now as women walking this path. Because there's a lot of teachings, there's a lot of structures and ways in which we can follow another's guidance of this is the right way to do a beloved relationship. But when it comes down to it, like anything similar to business, our strategy and our perception is all based on our deep heart wish and our deep soul alignment with who we are in that given moment, in that given cycle. As we're always cycling through portals of karmas, we're releasing them, we're transmuting them. And if you're wanting to create a more virtuous or dharmic karma with another person, you're conscious of not creating stress, of creating lower virtues or emotions that are making you live or feel or perceive or do life or to do love or to do intimacy from the lower self. It's your heart that really motivates you to live and to be in relationships that are of integrity, that are of kindness, that are of compassion, and a level of devotion, whatever that means to you, right? We don't have to be these temple priestesses having ritual and anointment processes and all these types of beautiful ways we can magically attune to our love and attune to the energy of our container, the dynamic that we are loving in. But we can do it simply, effortlessly, very hands-off approach, but still with intentionality. So this is what this transmission is really about today. It's living a dharmic life and calling in a dharmic relationship and living out your emotional mastery and really what I like to call creative emotional resiliency. Because some things that make us emotionally resilient, others wouldn't take on that invitation or that opportunity or the type of soulmate or lover or partner or beloved. It looks different for each one of us, but ultimately it's finding our own creative path into love. And so if you align with the idea that you and your consort or beloved is an illuminator for you and you are an illuminator for them, this is something that will resonate with you. So thank you so much for being here. And if anyone has any comments as I'm sharing, please do share and I'll read them. Any questions as well you may have been sitting with or what has stoked your heart to be here, I would love to know as some of us start to join in here, I see, which is wonderful. And so dharmic relationship, what I feel that is true about it across board is that you and your love have a similar heart wish. You could think of it as a similar vision for yourself, a similar vision for family or humanity, or ways in which you walk and talk and be and take action together. You have that similar heart wish, that similar dream, and you're wanting to share that dream in the highest octave with this person so that you can clarify the misconceptions of the self and that you can be a part of this fractal of your own beingness that is showing you a mirror essence of who you really are at your core. And some words in which, why is this Vedic astrologer, yoga lady, and coach on the internet talking about dharmic partnerships? And she seems a little young, perhaps, to be talking about these things. Well, I'm qualified to teach this on dharmic relationships, I feel, is because of a deep decade of contemplation around love, of not having a relationship until I was 27 years old, to then having only dharmic relationships because I was able to really know and see myself and use my imagination to not only be present with whatever circumstances were happening, whether there was something in the material world with the person I was dating that was very irritating or frustrating or didn't suit me in ways that I know that I'm growing, or to just be in vision of what do we see for ourselves? What do we want? How can we improve our love language? How can we improve the way that we connect on the daily and communicate on the daily? You could say it's a very Virgoian approach of optimizing the relationship that you have. And perhaps it is, because Virgo is the archetype of the priestess. So it's doing love in a very loving and way of skillful cultivation of relationship nuances that maybe we think only one person will serve us, but actually it can be multiple people. And we could even widen the lens and contemplate that this could be beyond just a love mate. It could be more of a friend mate as well, who's sharing and revealing to us our Dharma, being an illuminator as well. And so this is Dharmic relating, where we come together to shift, to evolve, and to dissolve karmas, and to be free, and to be conscious of the process and conscious of our attachment systems, ways in which our habits of our mind and habits of our nervous system react and respond, and move into more of our wisdom nature, our medicine woman nature. I find this to be one of the most rejuvenating, extra blissful paths that we can be on, but there's not much community to talk, to break bread, to have fellowship and share in ways that we're doing things differently, because it can feel very lonely and it can feel very tumultuous when we fall back into habits of being that feel overwhelming. And not only overwhelming in how do I manage this with all the other things I'm leading and taking, the lead, like my business or taking care of my children, but how do I do this with that level of soul responsibility that I know is mine to really ground in this life? And so I'm going to pause right there for a second, see if there's any comments or people joining in. And there's something too that feels timely about talking about Dharmic relationships, because I just finished up teaching my eclipse workshop and doing a handful of amazing eclipse and nodal readings for my clients. And more often than not, a relationship has ended or it has relation shifted. So the relationship, and apologies if there's some noise, it was absolutely quiet here at the library before I started, but it looks like there's a lot more activity. So I'm going to actually inch closer to my mic here, so that may help. But my observations with eclipses is that when we're living in this path of Dharma and being the visionary version of ourselves, our holy woman versions of ourselves, we're often going to be put through the ringer during the eclipses, whether it's a shift, whether it's massive self-doubt in the longevity, the sustainability, the fear that we have. Our lower fears come up to the surface and want to take over. They want to take the stage, and there's this feeling of haste that often takes over our nervous system too. And at the same time, there can be deep truths revealed. Deep, oh, this is what this chapter of this relationship will look like. How do I trust myself? How do I enter that frequency of pure trust and surrender, while also being skillful in my communication, in my boundaries, and talking about my desires and fears simultaneously? And so the eclipses can really, really allow us to become masterful in Dharmic relating, and to also call in Dharmic partners at this time. And I often see people meet partners around eclipses. I have met Dharmic partners around eclipses, so 1 month before the eclipses. So this round would be about late March to early June is a portal in which we can really open our energy to our highest light and pull in people that are right for us, or pull in the person that is right for us. If I'm speaking in plurality, it is also very akin to us running our businesses in alignment with the cycles of nature, and particularly the eclipses, because they are markers of time and markers of things feeling a bit faded. Whether conceptually they are or they aren't, that's a different question. The other thing I've noticed is that if you're running, this is a little Vedic astrology terminology, but if you're running a moon period, or what's called a moon dasha, or a sub-period of the moon, these eclipses are often really, really going to challenge you, and challenge you to pay utmost attention to your heart, be in your wisdom container, pull back your energy, come back into your spiritual practice, come back into silence, into song, whatever that is, or a combination for you, because it is easy to succumb to obsession, to addiction to attention, addiction to things needing to be a certain way now. And also even a passiveness, a laziness of like, oh, I really don't want to take responsibility in this area of my emotional beingness. Like, I'm just going to look the other way, or I'm going to, challenge my partner, or I'm going to threaten, rather, my beloved, because I'm feeling really insecure that my needs aren't getting met. Let me know if this is resonating with y'all. And the last thing I'll say about the eclipses is that we're prone to take in a lot of information. Kellyanne, resonating, good to hear. We're prone to take in a lot of, right on target, Britt. Oh, great. When the eclipses are happening, our psychic senses are so open. And it reminds us that they're always so open. It's like, it's a reminder of how spongy we are and how easily we can get confused, which is very much the Rahu nodal point in the Rahu Ketu axis, which causes the eclipses, you could say, or causes the stir of karma. And Rahu also deals with our mental obsessions, our addictions to attention, and ways in which relationships ought to be or must be, whatever we have going on in our mind. These types of strategies, theories, philosophies that may or may not be congruent with this enlightened path that you're walking, which makes it a bit of a mind F, if you know what I mean. But during the eclipses, we can be really reminded of how our intuition is being blocked, what is taking space in our lives, draining us. And by observing this, we can move into a higher perspective of your relationship or the process that you're going through when it comes to matters of your deep heart wish for love. And so traditionally, we'd have elders or those in fellowship where we could ask to be held in our own self-inquiry, sacred sisterhood, medicine women. But coming back into our soul's essence, unlearning things that we have learned or accumulated or have taken in to be a demand that we have on the universe or on our partners, we can clear that. And so this is part of Dharmic relating. It's being quite a clarifying and attuned holy woman and priestess. And one of the kind of essential spiritual truths of being in Dharmic relationships is, if you don't know how to understand and fully control your desire, which again is Rahu, your north node, it will lead you to pain, to suffering, and to frustration. And if you know how to control it, if you know how to expand and enhance your desire, make it a virtuous desire, while being non-attached, while being in the ultimate emptiness of it, you'll succeed in your heart wish. You'll succeed in a dharmic relationship. And we're often stressed. We're often under chronic stress or mild imbalanced stress because our desires are overpowering our minds and our nervous systems. And for women, it's one of the core truths of why we've incarnated in these bodies is to move with our insatiable desire for love, our insatiable yearning for love, and then that not being met on the timeline that we want. Does that make sense, Britt, as an example of that? Of if we don't know how to really control our desire for whatever type of partnership of love that we want, then it'll often lead to feeling like I have to give up, I have to let go, or I have to hold on, avoidant or anxious spectrum, you could even say. But if we know how we can be in a sense of relationship to controlling the desire, then we can be in this place of allowing. And that's the ultimate question, Kelly Ann, of learning how to control your desire. And yes, learning about where your nodes are in your chart and your tendencies of leaning in a Rahu direction versus a Ketu direction. Ketu is the south node and is where our security paradigm is, versus Rahu, which is our security paradigm we're being challenged to move into in this lifetime. And where often during the eclipses especially, we can blow up our desires, or we can blow up what we really want and be blinded by the obsession of them. But if we know how to be obsessed, to be in this active type of dance, this active type of pursuit, that's the obsession that I'm talking about, a balance obsession that is being active, pursuing, but is not just wanting to devour the person, the time in which we are with our partner or solving an issue in our relationship or imbalance. We're not trying to just devour it or destroy it. We're holding our container, holding our integrity, holding ourself at the most profound and deep level that we may be wanting another person to hold us. But the truth is, the deep holding has to begin with ourselves. Yes. So ultimately with the unattachment. Yes. 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 Mm-hmm. And this is something, the mythos of enlightened women in love, Mary Magdalene, Yeshe Tolskill, emulate for us. They really allow us to be in a divine union with a wise being, a wise man who is working at a level of deep soul responsibility in his masculine, so that we can work at a deep level of soul responsibility in our feminine. That may look different, and it often does look very deeply tantric in the sense of our emotional fluctuations being the ultimate guide, but at times also being the ultimate funny mirror, like in a carnival, in where we may be confused if the emotions are giving us truth or if they're giving us untruths. So it's up to us to really build our discernment, what's called our buddhi, our mind's understanding of, is this emotion coming from a place of wisdom, or is this emotion coming from a place of my lower self? And that is the practice, and that is something that I'll be teaching and that we're going to be talking about and going deep in my Magdalene Mastermind that is opening up in June sometime. And that is going to be rooted in these principles of Dharmic relationship that are not only to benefit you in living a wisdom-filled life in love and in virtue when it comes to relationship, but also your business, because love is the foundation for all of us, but especially for us spiritual inclined women on this path of rightful living. Our heart needs to be satiated. It needs to find ways in which we are always drinking from the well of our own mindfulness and also our own strategies in how we practically get our love met through people and through dating, through our partner, and things like this. And everyone's uniquely different. And that's why when we go into the mastermind, I'll be looking at the charts of your personal birth charts and also giving some key quintessence ideas and principles, but also space for you to find your own creed of how to do Dharmic relationships. And so beautiful that we're wrapping up just on time. Thank you, Mercury. We're still in retrograde for a few more days. And there's just one last thing I would like to do. I think it'll take us to 3:33 on Eastern time, which is just to come into a heart meditation. And this is part of why I find Mary Magdalene and Yeshe Tolskol. Yeshe Tolskol was a Buddhist priestess, an enlightened Buddhist priestess. She's one of the only well-known tantric priestesses who was a masterful healer and a masterful devotee, a tantrika, and a lover. She was a consort to Padma Sambhava, and she gives us a template of living in a sense of sacred devotion. Mary Magdalene as well, the first apostle of Christ. There's many lores and many ways she's perceived in the media. And actually, I went to a play last night where there was a Jesus Christ Superstar song. That was Mary Magdalene's song. And in the theater performance in the play, musical, Mary Magdalene was indeed considered a prostitute. And whether or not she does not matter to me. It's the principle of living in devotion to love and being in a devotional relationship to a man who is living and walking his highest truths while being a human, being imperfect. So being in the paradox of, yes, I'm committed to living in my highest truth, walking in my highest truth, doing my due diligence, and I'm committed to giving myself permission to enter into places of separative consciousness, in places where I forget who I am, where I forget what I'm capable of, when I forget who I am in a devoted and conscious partnership. There's this allowance for the human, the 3D, to walk alongside the 5D, to walk alongside this higher love, which is one of my favorite songs, Higher Love, by the way. So as we wrap up here, I want you to just close your eyes and come into your heart. And this is a beautiful way in which we can use our imagination, use our oracular skills when we're feeling a wobble, when we're feeling confusion, a lack of clarity, a rush of dopamine, or a rush of fear perhaps entering our body, and something going wrong with our relationship, or something off, or something in limbo, being in the void space, very eclipsy. And I want you to imagine a place that feels like your heart, whether it's the middle of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, whether it's on a lake surrounded by natural beauty and greenery and forests, Whether it's laying on the ground and watching a shooting star or the constellations slowly move in the evening, whether it's being with your current beloved, whatever opens your heart, just go to that place and breathe into this place in your imagination. Really feel the peace, the calm, the tranquility of being in your unique heart space that makes you feel a sense of belonging, a sense of bliss, a sense of eros, a sense of potentiality, in this deep sense of being held in love. Beautiful. And you can imagine your energy just being flushed from the top of your head all the way down to the tips of your toes, just being flushed with a white light of glistening and sparkling love. And as you move forward in your day, carrying this template, this visualization of what is your heart space, so that you can easily come back into your heart, because that is where the ultimate resonance will be and where you can always find your path in the dark. Jai Ma. Thank you all so much for being here. Amen. Indeed. The ultimate relationship is between the spirit and the body, the 3D and the 5D. And Britt, Kelly Ann, if you want to stay on, I'm going to start doing some channeled readings if either of you want them. And I'm going to see who else jumps on as well for the rest of the hour, but feel free to go if you need to go. If you have any words or sensations or ahas that you'd like to share, feel free to share in the comments or come off and speak your beautiful voices. All is welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Britt, you like a reading? Awesome. Shoot me your question, honey. I feel like my voice has to be a little extra soothing because I'm in the library, you know. Someone's using my office today, so I'm using an awesome library office. I'm gonna stop recording as well.